part.
But he was only allowed in his house. I don't think
Was he?
Percy would have been that way I don't think he would have been the pompous ass that Hermione was in class.
Oh, I totally see him as like the male version of Hermione a little bit older in Snape's classes. Like the
Yeah, I think by then Percy would have been tempered by Bill and Charlie's knowledge of Snape and been like, I'm just
well,
gonna shut
that's
up and do my
he may
work.
have been smart enough to shut up in that particular classroom.
Yeah,
That's fair. That
yeah.
is fair.
I
Uh
also think part of Snape's animosity towards Hermione was the Muggle-bornness. And Percy is a pureblood. Regardless of being a Weasley, he is a pureblood.
he is, but he's also like the I mean, we actually see on the page, "Excuse me, I'm a prefect."
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
but he
Person,
wouldn't have that would he Percy
he
is 100% about hierarchy. And the teachers still, regardless of how asshole like they may be, the teachers are higher in the hierarchy. So he wouldn't
they
have that like to,
they they are he wouldn't have done that to Snape, but that was his attitude.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And Snape is the head of the house that hates his house. Like, so I could see him almost taking any prefect of on the Gryffindor side and basically putting a target on them just because they're the Gryffindor prefect.
Oh yeah, but I could also see Percy being 100% the person who's like, I'm not going to let him take any points from me, and being
Yeah,
perfect. You know what I mean? He's
that
perfect.
that's true. That's true. He does have the best shot at being least hated by
Exactly.
Snape.
That's where I'm
I
going.
think tolerated was pretty much the best
That's a good word.
for it.
Yeah.
I think it really
Yeah.
was the good word.
And then we got Fred
Yeah.
and George.
Yeah,
Fred and
they
George.
are literally the Marauders reincarnated. There's just only two of them instead of four.
Okay, but do you think, and this is just me finding the goodness in every human,
Don't.
I can't help it. Is it possible in
No.
the deep right recesses of his brain, he at least acknowledged their brilliance with potions?
No.
No.
But they were so good at them.
They were when they cared. Here's the thing I figured out about the twins, because remember they got like two like what was it, two newts between or owls between them. Like they had very
Mhm.
few owls, something like three, because they were brilliant at what they wanted to do. And we all know those students where, yes, you can do algebra, but you're not going to do your algebra homework because that's annoying. But if someone says to you, hey, if you figure out this formula, you can figure out how to make your own chocolate in your kitchen. Well, we're figuring out this formula then. Like, those are the twins. And I think Snape would have resented that level of you have talent and brilliance and you're wasting it. I think it would have made him hate them even more.
Yeah, and they clearly weren't the types to shut up in class. Like
No.
they would be the ones and they would think it was funny to get Snape riled up.
Mm-hmm.
So you know that they would be fucking with him constantly in subtle ways and not so subtle. Like they're everything that he hates in a student.
Yeah.
They were
And
blowing up
they
cauldrons.
yeah, and the fact that they were super smart probably just made it worse.
Mm-hmm.
We have to I think we can't give Snape just a blanket pass or the benefit of the doubt at how much I truly believe he did not want to be teaching.
True
He
story.
hated
I'm with you.
teaching and hated the students by and large, and he would have been particularly perturbed by the twins.
Okay.
You know what's interesting?
Particularly perturbed. I love that phrase. And yes, I'm
Interesting side note. Two of Harry's best teachers did not want to be teachers. Harry and Snape and Fake Moody.
Yeah. He did learn a lot from people who really shouldn't have been teaching children.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
sorry.
Okay, so here's my thought on him with Ron. And I'll get to Jenny and my thoughts on that in a minute. But My thing with him and Ron, I think, goes to the fact that by this point he has learned and taught himself well to hate all Weasleys. Ron would have been able to fly under the radar ish, along the line levels of Bill Charlie Percy type of hatred, if he hadn't befriended Harry. Like, I think he would have been just another Weasley. Life would have gone on with his normal level of hatred of Weasleys. But I think him befriending Harry took Snape's level of hatred of Weasleys to a level only rivaled by his hatred for Harry.
Yeah, and we see it, right? Like we see it on the page, so we don't have to speculate how Snape hated Ron. Like we literally see it. Here would be my question in that. Would Ron have still had his moments inside that classroom specifically of standing up for Harry, Hermione, others in the class if he wasn't best friends with them? Because I feel like his character still would.
I was going to say, he's still a Gryffindor. He's still Ron. I think he is a champion of those that are oppressed. I think we would not have, looking at it from Harry's point of view, if he hadn't been friends with Ron, I could see the story changing to that loudmouth redhead kid who won't shut up in class and is always getting the Gryffindors in trouble. Because I do think Ron would have still stood up for what was right.
I would agree, although I think he still would have stood up for whoever he befriended. So if it had been Seamus, and every time Seamus had an incident, it would have stood up for Seamus. Like, I think Ron is just a quintessential ride or die. That's his MO.
Yeah, I'm just saying, and I agree. I think just because we know the story from Harry's point of view,
right,
we wouldn't have heard as much about it except when they were in potions getting loss of points because that loud redhead kid wouldn't stop defending himself, But I think as Snape was always going to hate Ron because he's a Weasley.
Yeah.
Another Weasley. But by befriending Harry, he became seriously next generation marauder.
Yeah, and I actually think that it toned down Ron in Snape's class because he had the almost insider trading knowledge of Snape and first-hand experience of how much Snape truly loathed Harry, while he couldn't help himself sometimes. Like, I think that if he didn't have the perspective and he was just an outside character, like, I think he'd have been spouting off even more because he wouldn't actually understand the ramifications as much
right
as he does in the main story. So yeah, I think that I think he was going to be hated by Snape regardless. I don't think he was going to completely fly under the radar and just like hang out and mind his business in Snape's classroom. But the specific level of hatred that he receives from Snape is amplified by being Harry's best friend.
Oh, absolutely. Now, conversely, I'm going to say, and this may be controversial, everybody knows I love Jenny, so maybe that's where it comes from, but we do not get a lot about her under Snape's tutorial.
Nope.
But it's just me, I truly believe he did not see Jenny as horribly as he saw the rest of the Weasleys, just for the same reason people feel like Harry loved Jenny, and that is the resemblance to Lily. I think he would have ignored her. I think he would have looked through her, over her, around her, to not look her in the eye. I think there was a part of him that hated her because she was a Weasley, but I do not feel like he could have treated her as poorly as he treated all the boys, just because when he glanced up, there was Lily for a second every time he did it.
So that one's interesting to me because it came to my mind too. Before I hit that, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that she was headstrong,
Mm.
confident, and very witty,
Oh yeah.
and would have gladly um, defended herself or friends or others or whoever against his bullying teacher tactics, and that would not have won her any points, nor would becoming Harry Potter's girlfriend at later in the story. That's not winning her any points either.
Correct.
But I did think about the way that you pointed out that she is basically written to be Lily 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
You could see a world where Snape could, in theory, react more positively to her. But I also wonder if his character isn't actually more likely to hate her even more for it, for reminding him of her.
Well, see,
The
and I
sheer
never had that thought.
audacity of you making me think of her and making, like just and you being alive and her not. You know what I mean? Like
That's why
that
I said
twisted.
he would look
Ugh.
through her, around her, over her, never make eye contact. I think she could have raised her hand, stood up, and danced on the desk, and he would have just been looking down like, Weasley, sit. Because I think if he looks at her, he can't help the spike of feeling. Yes, he would hate that spike of feeling. But to not react to it in front of all the other students, I think he would have just, she was, I'm ignoring this exists so that I can get on about my life, until about 5th, 6th year, when all of a sudden Harry's now involved in it. Now things are now ugly and I'm not ignoring her and I'm taking points. But the first 2 years, I think she could have skated.
I think there is actually another aspect to it that I think Ginny's first year, definitely what Mel said in the beginning. Second year, having Ginny have been possessed by the Dark Lord, I think second year he probably had some compassion for her and understanding because of what she had gone through, and he knows the power of the Dark Lord. And I think by the end of second year, he was over it and is like, oh, that's fucking Weasley. Like, I think there was this little time where he cared. He genuinely cared because of what she had gone through. And then that went away very quickly. And by the time she dated Harry, he hated her. Like, white hot. Actually, when she first showed brilliance in Quidditch, as a Weasley and a Quidditch player, I think he stopped seeing the Lily at that point, was like, no, this little see you next Tuesday, I'm done.
I'm going to say, I think he had a harder time containing his feelings, but easier because there was nothing he could do about it in the Great Hall, where she would have been with her friends and laughing and joyous, and and he had to sit at that table and see her joy from far enough away that it blurred the edges, and he's re-seeing Lily and the Marauders at the table, and there's nothing he can do about it. I think those were the moments where his anger and hatred stirred more than in his classroom, where it was contained and quiet and focused.
I have a lot of complicated feelings about Ginny.
I do. I think he had, but I also think Harry should have had a lot of complicated feelings about Ginny. But anyway.
Oh, I did a whole video. Anyway.
Right?
You were on here talking about it.
I was gonna say you did it here too. So
yeah, but we didn't go all the way. We talked a lot about the positives.
Yeah, we didn't go
of that pairing, because they do, and we won't rehash it, but they do, just from a personality standpoint, fit quite well.
Yes.
There's a lot of other things.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that we could do.
But let's go back to, so we've got 7 children that have made life miserable 10 months a year.
And you know that they've talked about it at home.
Yeah.
They've completely and these are the stories that Arthur's getting.
Right.
So in what world is Arthur, like, how do you think he's responding to those stories? And now, on top of the fact of knowing this guy was a Death Eater, and now he's got to just trust him.
Well, and that's where I go to. we like the